Have you back with me on the lecture. So today we will continue with our series with the UTME past questions, and so we'll be doing year 2020. All right, so let's get started. Like I always say, please get a pen and a book to write these things down and attempt the questions first before listening to what I'm going to say. The hormone which regulates the amount of glucose in the blood is called, adrenaline is called a flight and fight hormone, which helps us during emergency. Auxin is a growth hormone. Insulin is the answer we desire, actually. Thyroxine helps to it helps in metabolism, basically how food is digested and all of those things. That's what thyroxine does. So our answer here is insulin. Now, where is insulin formed from? It's formed from an organ called the pancreas, really. So I'm going to quickly explain some few things. So I will not just explain the fact that it's not only insulin that does that, but amongst these options, insulin is the only one there. But in reality, we have other hormones. But the two major hormones that actually controls glucose level or sugar level, as the case may be, is insulin. Insulin and glucagon. So let's see what happens here. I'm going to start with this part here. We have put the A on. The A means it's saying that glucose level is rather high in the blood. Because it is high in the blood, that's not so good. The normal glucose level should be about 90 to 100 milligram per centimeter cube of blood. That's what you're supposed to have. But when we are done eating, or when for some instance, once you're done eating or something, your glucose level also rise above normal. You can probably rise about 400 milligram, which is not so good for the body like that. So what the body does is find a way to bring it down. How will it do that? So when we have high glucose in the blood or high blood sugar level, so this will stimulate insulin secretion, and that signal will be sent to what? To the pancreas by the islet of Langerhans, and that will stimulate, like I said, it will stimulate insulin. So this insulin, you can just follow the arrow. Let me say this is 1, high level, 2, to send a signal to 3, which is pancreas. Then insulin is secreted from islet of Langerhans. What will that do? Just follow what I'm doing. It's going to stimulate glucose uptake from the blood. So it's going to make sure that glucose is being removed from the blood. That excess glucose, let's say we have 400 milligram, which is above normal, and you're supposed to have 100. So of course, 400 minus 100 is going to be 300. So that excess 300 milligram of glucose must be taken away. And how would that happen? Instead, we make sure that cells are taking it in. So you can see it. Let me say this is 5. So tissue cells, muscle, kidney, all of those are taking up cells. Number 1. Number 2 is that it's also being turned. Glucose is also being turned to glycogen in the liver. As a matter of fact, this is one of the major things that happen, really. So in case you want to ask yourself, how will insulin reduce sugar level in the blood? It's going to do that by causing the cells of the body generally to absorb more glucose than they will normally do and store it there. Number 2 is going to convert this excess glucose into glycogen. So let's say this is 5, this is 6. So I'll just put 6 here. Conversion of excess glucose to glycogen. So you should probably note the way the sequence went. Maybe I should run through that again. Let me run through that again in a minute. It's quite important. When we have high blood sugar level, it promotes insulin and send a message to the pancreas. That's 3. Then from there, insulin is secreted for real, and that will stimulate the cells of the body to take more glucose. So that's what we have here: cells, tissue, and all of that. So, and once that is happening, see what's going on. Just watch. So when that has happened, that's number one that's happening. Number two thing that's going to happen is that excess glucose is also being converted to glycogen. Let's say that is 5. Now, because there's now the effect of glucose converted to glycogen in the liver plus uptake from the cell, I'm cycling these two of them, you bring them down. Looking at the yellow arrow, what does it lead to? Lower sugar level in the blood. So all of those things come together to reduce sugar level. So one of the things you know now is that insulin helps to bring down sugar level. That's why people that doesn't have insulin will end up having diabetes mellitus. All right. Now, on the other hand, if for any reason the sugar level is now below normal, which normally happens when we are hungry and some other things, the same body system is stimulated. So this time around, I'm going to start from here, where I'm putting the star now. So this time I'm going to use alphabets. So let's say this is A. So because of low sugar level now that we now need, what happens is it promotes the secretion of, so it means this is B, secretion of glucagon. So another hormone that is needed to regulate sugar level is glucagon. But in this case, this one is going to increase sugar level, not reduce it. So this will go to send a signal to the pancreas as usual, which will lead to formation of glucagon. And what will glucagon do is like deposit and withdrawal. What has been stored in the liver as glycogen, can you see? Well, see, I want you to look at the arrow here. Let me erase that part for you to be able to see. Now, after the glucagon has been stimulated, look at where the arrow goes. It's converting glycogen to glucose. So it's going to be gradually anyway. It's not going to be everything at once. It's going to take a part of the glycogen has been stored, convert it to glucose. And what would that lead to? Is to increase what? So let me say this is E, then this is F. It's going to then increase glucose level. So you might want to watch this again or rewind this really. That is helpful. Then deamination occurs in in the liver. Now let's explain a little what deamination means. When we are done eating our proteinous food, it's broken down into amino acids. So this amino acid is used for us to grow, for some of them to be converted to other food substances. However, the excess ones that the body cannot do anything with must be removed from the body. Now, when that is, what's going to happen is that the amino group of the amino acid is being removed actually. Now, once that's deamination, actually, like the removal of, that's the beginning of the process, the removal of the amino group of amino acid. Now, bear this in mind. What really happens is this amino group will be converted to ammonia, which is harmful. Then that will then be converted to urea. All right. So basically, deamination is like you are converting excess amino acid in a way to what is less harmful, which is urea, which will then be excreted out of our body. And what is doing that process of removal of amino group, conversion to ammonia, conversion to urea is the organ that does that whole thing is the liver. All right, hope that is noted. While the kidney will help remove that during formation, so to say. Now, in agricultural ecosystem, the biotic components consist of, the first thing we need to remember when we say ecosystem, it means community of living organisms, different organisms, plus the environment, all right? Then biotic means something living, basically. So here, when it says the biotic components alone, that means we are meant to look out for all the things that are living. So option A, crops are living, pests are living, beneficial insects are living. That looks like the answer. But B, well, cannot be correct because humidity and temperature are non-living. Water on the sea is not living. Water and soil is not living. So the answer is A, which is crops pests and beneficial insects. Now, the hypha of rhizopus is said to be non-septate because it. Now, there's something you need to remember, that fungi have thread-like structures that look somewhat like what I'm going to draw now, which I think I have diagrams to show you much later or also in a moment. Now, these things I have drawn, like with the arrow on them, are called hypha. All right, plural hypha. So basically, so when we say septate means, does it have partitioning or it doesn't have partitioning? If it has partitioning, it's called septate. If it doesn't have, it's non-septate. And really, rhizopus doesn't have partitioning at all. That's why. So with what I just said, I think you should know what the answer is. So it says there that it says there that does not contain chlorophyll, no, has no cross wall. I think that's the answer there. Yes, has no cross wall. Now let me show you something here. So this is what I've gotten for you. This is what rhizopus looks like. Bringing that in more, you notice that there's nothing like, there's no partitioning at all. All those dots are actually nuclei within the cell. However, this is what a septate looks like. All right. Now, in case in an examination, you should be able to remember that septate means they have partitioning, like there's a separation. You can see a partitioning. We can see septum, yes, that separates each of the segments, while this one is non-septate or synocytic. Some book will call it synocytic. It means the same thing. It means non-septate or septate. All right. Non-septate means the same thing as synocytic, so to say. An example of organism of fungi that have septate is the likes of penicillium. Right, that's an example of the one that the hypha. These things, like I said, are what we call the hypha, all those thread-like structures, so to say. That is helpful. Then here it says, in which of the following does external fertilization occur? What does that mean? It means that in which of the following is it that the eggs are released from the female and the sperm is poured on it outside the female's body. So if you look through that, toads actually do not carry out internal fertilization. Lizards carries out internal, birds carries out, even cockroaches does that really. So which means that the answer is toad. They carry out external fertilization. Let me show you what I mean by that. Now, this is what they do. This is called courtship as well as fertilization. So this female is laying her eggs into the water. It could take 3 days. She will lay the eggs in form of a thread like that. And this male will be on her back, shedding sperm cell on it for those number of days. So it's being fertilized, like you can see the sperm and eggs are released into the water. All right. Now, of course, in birds, which chickens here represent, you can see they have a structure called cloaca, which is like a tube with which the male will use to deposit the sperm cell, and also the female will use to receive the sperm cells or the semen, as the case may be. All right. So here we are again. So now, it's not only amphibians or the likes of toad that carries out. Now, let me rephrase that. It might be wrong to say amphibians generally, because you have some amphibians that exhibit internal fertilization. So it's not all of them. All right. That's why it was said in this example that toad, in this question, it wasn't put there as amphibians, it was given as toad, one of the examples of amphibians. Now, so here also fishes too carries out external fertilization. So it's not only toads that does that, but of course, other options from this question 7 all carry out internal fertilization except for toads. The villus in the small intestine is significant because now the villus is actually the finger-like structures in the lumen of the small intestine. So this is the lumen. This is the lumen of the small intestine. So, and you can see it being magnified here. These are a lot of villi. This single one, this one is just called, just a singular one is called villi. So these are villi like that there. So what is the significance? Well, they help to absorb like that. Imagine you have a towel that is used to, so it's used to absorb like that into the bloodstream. So that goes into the bloodstream like that. It goes into the bloodstream. It comes into the bloodstream like that. All right. Now, moving on, let me show you then. So it says here, now it says increase surface area for absorption. Apparently, that is the answer there. A is the answer. Increase surface area for digestion, no. Assist in mixing, no. Assist filtering, no. It is A. Increases the surface area for absorption. It makes it easier for absorption to take place because of how thin and how microscopic it is to be able to absorb. It looks this big, but it's not this big really. It's because of pictures that makes it look this big. It's not really this big in reality. It's small, very, very small. That helps to absorb food substances. Now it says here, the butterfly is of great economic importance because of what? Well, I already put a picture there. You've seen this butterfly inserting its proboscis into, probably you want to hear what that word says again, proboscis. This is a tube that's sucking insects, or let me say piercing and sucking insects, use to suck the food from their host or from plants, as the case may be. So in this case here, this is a flower that is trying to suck nectar from. So it says of its use in scientific studies, it sucks nectar from flower. Yes. Now, but that's not totally just because it sucks nectar. The answer there is D. It's pollinate flowers of crops and other plants. Now, while it is sucking the nectar, some of the pollen grain will rub off on its body so that when it then goes, maybe it could be on the feet, on the legs. So when the pollen grain is there, so when it goes to feed on another plant, it's going to drop the pollen grain there, or another species, another flower of the same species. Let's say this one going to be a mango flower, and it goes to another mango. So this pollen grain that has received from mango A is going to probably drop it on mango B, so to say. So it's just the real thing is it helps to pollinate. It helps to pollinate. But the reason why it goes there, well, in the first place, is to suck nectar. So the answer is D. So that's why I always tell you, try to read all through the question. If there was no better answer, B might make sense. It's just that it is us that will know why. But here, they actually even mention why here, which is D. So that's why it's good to read through your questions. Now, the bright color of the comb and the feathers in the peacock are for, well, sex differentiation, not really, beauty. That's nice, but that's what it's for. It's for courtship. Yes, when it spreads that, the peahen, which is the female one, gets attracted to the male, then goes towards it for mating and all of that. So the answer is C, for courtship. Now, what is the term used to describe biotic and abiotic component or factor in the environment of the organism? I think I mentioned that earlier on. So when we say biotic and abiotic put together, that's like you having what we call an ecosystem. So the biotic are all the living things, and the abiotic are the non-living things, temperature and other things like that. So the answer is ecosystem. Ecosystem. All right, moving on. Now, which of the following instruments is not used in measuring factors in any habitats. Now, this one here, let me put A here, let me put B here. So this A is the hygrometer, which I think we've seen one of those questions before. This is the hygrometer. What is it used for? To measure relative humidity, which means how cold or how moist the weather is. And this one is wind vane. That's B, wind vane, to know the direction of the wind. In this case here, the wind is blowing towards south. Why do I know? Because this arrow is pointing the same direction as south. All right. So these two has been put there. Then we also have something called thermometer, which is also used for measuring some abiotic factors like what? Like temperature. Temperature is abiotic, but we don't use the microscope at all. So the answer is A. It says which of the following is not used? Instrument is not used measuring abiotic factor. We don't use that. We probably use microscope most times to look at microorganisms, which are living things, which are biotic. So the answer there is A. All right. The smallest living organism which share the characteristics of both and non-living matter are, well, bacteria are living. They've never been non-living. Fungi are. The answer to our question, actually, protozoa are also living. If you have seen one of those questions I answered talking about prokaryote and eukaryote, and I also told you there that viruses does not fall in the category of living things because they exhibit living and not living. So the answer is viruses, which is option C, because they exhibit both entities of living things. Sorry, of living and not living. When they are kept in the living thing, they exhibit the major characteristics of living things, and when they are brought out, they stop living, they assume a crystalline kind of shape. All right. Now, the process by which a red blood cell placed in water, distilled water, absorbs water until it bursts and releases its contents in the surroundings is known as, well, from what, let's say I put this as A, B, and C. Apparently, what I said will make sense here on this C segment, which is happening here, like that. So what happens is when you put the plants, these red blood cells in water, it keeps sucking water like that until it stretches to its last capacity and bursts, and that is called hemolysis. Lysis means to break. So we say hemolysis, like blood breaking or bursting or rupturing. Now let me explain something. You probably see that down here, the plant cell will not break. Why won't it break? Because it has a cellulose cell wall which is rigid, which is hard to break. So that won't protect it from what will happen is it's just going to stretch out that way and it won't burst, because cellulose cell wall is rather very large, very rigid. Now hear this, that for a cell to keep sucking water, that it must be kept in an hypotonic solution, which means that that surrounding solution is diluted than itself. While in isotonic means that the inside of the cell, let's say the inside of the red blood cell and outside have the same concentration. So water goes in and out, nothing happens. Same thing happens here. But if you put a cell in an hypertonic solution, which means a concentrated solution, what happens is water will be sucked out of the cell. It's going to shrink. Same thing happens to the plant cell. This is because we say the cell has become plasmolized. Now you notice that it's not the entire cell that shrinks. It's just the inside, which is cell membrane and the cytoplasm. The cell wall is rigid for it to shrink. All right. So you need to remember all these things. All right. This is very, very important. Now it says here, which of the following waste product in plants is excreted through the stomata and lenticels? Okay. Carbon dioxide, alkaloids, tannins, anthocyanins. The answer is carbon dioxide. Yes. Now, some of these things you're seeing, they are actually waste product really, but stomata and lentil cells are actually holes that through which gases goes in and out. So this is stoma, singular. So carbon dioxide goes in during photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide goes out during respiration, which is a waste product during respiration. Then on the surface of the stem, so stomata is found on the leaves, while lentil cells are found on the stem, basically. So these are lentil cells, they are holes. We must have seen this before, that through which carbon dioxide goes in and out, as the case may be, or gases goes in and out. So of course, from this question, we've only given carbon dioxide, all right, as a waste product that goes out through lentil cells and stomata. So you should know now that lentil cells are found on the surface of the stem, while stomata are found on the leaves. Don't forget, stomata is plural, stoma is singular. Now, looking at this here, the vertebra illustrated here, this is one of the backbones. Actually, we have 34 backbones, or let me say vertebral. The bones that make up the vertebral column is actually 34. It's 34, 33. Sorry, let's do that together. The first one around the neck is called cervical, which is 7 in number. All right. While the next one to it is called thoracic, which is 12 in number. The next one to it is called lumbar, which is 5 in number. And the next one to it is called sacral, which is also 5 in number. And we have the caudal, or which we call coccyx or coccygia. That is 4 in number. So this is 22 plus 7, that's 29 plus 4, 33. It's actually 33, please. So we have 33 bones that forms the vertebral column, so to say. And the thoracic one is 12 in number. And what you have seen here is the thoracic one. So the answer is B. Probably tell me, why do you say it's thoracic? Because of this thing called neural spine. It's actually longer than other ones. So let's look at some few things here. So I'm going to advise you to quickly just pause the video here to see some things. Now, let me call your attention to something. This is thoracic. Now, it looks shorter here because of the way it was placed. I wish I'd actually seen this. I would have probably picked the one that was shown, will I say superiorly, or there's an orientation in which it's going to show more like it is shown here. I'm saying that emphatically, that the thoracic vertebra has the longest neural spine, so to say. So that's the reason why we picked option B. But what you are saying here, so that you probably feel like, the lumbar is the one that has, no, it's because of the way it was positioned, really. All right. Bear that in mind. Then you can actually, oh, beautiful. Can you even see what I've said here? The spinal process. It says long. Point inferiorly. So because it pointed inferior, that's why we actually didn't see it, how long it is. Pause the video at this point and try to get some of the information there so that we won't waste time on all of that. That's why I added this. Pause the video, read through this. Now the next question is still on. It says the neural arc is what? This is neural arc, which is 2, which is option B, the neural arc. Now, I brought in this for you to see. These parts here, here, and here are all neural arc, so to say, like especially this front part, this and this, as you are seeing here. Oh, sorry about that. Now, so this you can see that that's the neural arc. You can see where it is pointing to anyway. And let me say that vertebral arc or neural arc means the same thing. So that's another thing I wanted you to pay attention to. Vertebral arc or neural arc means the same thing. All right. So moving on, the answer there is B, and you can see the reason why it is. The respiratory structure in the earthworm is, okay, analysis that you should remember now is that earthworm is an annelid. An annelid is basically roundworms, and roundworm uses what we call nephridium. So can you see how I analyze it? Roundworms, whether segmented like earthworm, whether unsegmented like Ascaris lubricoides, which is your normal, this parasitic worm in humans, they are both roundworm and they use nephridium. So the answer here is C. However, mammalian tubule is used in arthropods. Flame cell is used in flatworms, like tapeworms, so to say, planaria and all of that. While kidneys are used in, let's say, mammals, in some other, even fishes, like some advanced animals, so to say. Now, looking at this, now you're going to see that, okay, that's what I was saying here. So, mammalian tubule in ants, flame cell in planaria, which is flatworm, nephridia plural in earthworms. All right, hope that is noted. In which of the following vertebrates does the skin function as a respiratory surface? Okay, they actually have, they carry out gaseous exchange through their surface, skin surface. The answer to that is frog. Please, fish is wrong because fish does not use the surface, it only uses the gills. So the water goes through the mouth, over the gills, and oxygen is extracted from there. And carbon dioxide is released along with the water. So this was happening here. So the body is used like that. They actually use this also in water. When they're actually in water, they carry out gaseous exchange like that, so to say. And this frog actually uses buccal cavity, like the skin of their mouth, to carry out respiratory gaseous exchange. They also use their gills, their lungs. So they use three things: the skin, which we call, yes, I remember now, which we call cutaneous respiration. So cutaneous respiration is using the skin for respiration or gaseous exchange in toads, or let me say amphibians, all right? So, and also uses the buccal cavity and the lungs for gaseous exchange. Now, the process of walking is under the control of the part of the brain called what? Now, walking, like you walking. Okay. The answer to that: optic has to do with the eyes, olfactory has to do with smell, or medulla oblongata has to do with involuntary activities like blood pressure, heartbeat, lungs, and all of those things. So the answer here is C, which is cerebellum. Cerebellum. It controls, the question can say, which of the following controls walking, muscle strength, coordination, all of those things, like what I'm doing now, this muscles moving this way, is done by cerebellum. Now hear this. The decision to do it voluntarily is done by the cerebrum. Don't be confused. Cerebrum is used to take conscious decision, like deliberate voluntary decision. But the actual contraction and relaxation of the muscles is to some extent done by cerebellum. So muscle contraction is done by cerebellum, but some of these functions are actually conscious thoughts, which is done in the cerebrum. All right. So this is what we're saying here. So this is what the cerebrum, this is the cerebellum. I mean, so we used to call it little brain because it's actually small. It's part of the hind brain. All right. So while this bigger part here called cerebrum is the larger part of the brain, that is the site of conscious decision, conscious effort, and all of those things. All right. While this is the medulla oblongata I mentioned, which is also part of the hind brain, which helps control involuntary activities like heartbeat and the likes. Now, the ability of the eye is to focus on both distant and near objects is called accommodation. Yes. When people use glasses, it means that something is wrong with the ability to. Naturally, our eyeball should be able to focus on a distant object or close object. All right, so the answer to this question is accommodation, which means ability for your eyes to look at something that's far off or look at something that is close here. So because our eyeballs actually contains lens in it, which can zoom in or zoom out as the case may be. And that zooming in or zooming out, as it is demanded for you to look at a close object or far object, is regarded as accommodation. All right. Now it says here, a group of organisms of different species living in a particular area is described as. Now the key word here is different species. Different species. We call that a community. Why? Why is it not called population? Population is a particular species, just one species, that can interbreed within themselves to produce offspring of themselves. That's what we call it, population. But when you now have populations or different species, then you have something called a community. And communities, alongside with their environment, of course, forms the ecosystem. Now, here it says, the biological association that contributes directly to the succession in a community is, actually, this should be competition. Succession actually means a case whereby, and the answer to this question is A. I think I would say I'm 95% sure of that. The remaining 5% is because other options look somewhat reedy. Now, I wish there was an option like mutualism there. Why did I say that? For example, lichens, which helps to bring about succession on a rocky surface. Succession is having you're trying to form a new habitat, so to say. It's a gradual change over a period of time in which one species of organisms, not species of organisms, so that we didn't take its evolution. When the environment changes over time, for example, this is a rocky surface like that, and this rocky surface needs to be changed into a soil like that. So what happened is that, for example, if you were to change this to a soil, which we have seen that before, is that the first colonizer of this rocky surface is going to be lichen. Now, this lichen is made up of two organisms called algae and fungi. Now, that's why I mentioned, I said, if this is mutualism, I wish one of these options were to be mutualism, but we probably ask me, why did I choose competition? Now, the funny thing is that when lichen breaks this down into, not totally to soil, please, to a little level whereby a little soil is formed, some other plants that are a bit adapted to a little soil comes up there. After some years, they also die and create more manure on the surface of the rock, breaking down a little, and other plant comes. So, but what happened is, once this, let me say this is A, let's say this is A, this is B, this is C. Once B arrives, A goes, lichen stops to live. When B has made the environment so nice for C to come, so C comes in, then B ceases to live. Then when, let's say the C is another bigger plant, some plant that are able to survive, they will crack the rocks and break it some more. Then another better plant will come in. Let's say I'll call that D. All right. So once D comes, C will go. That's what succession is like. So B will succeed A, C will succeed B, D will succeed C. So it's like competing in a way. But the good thing is that A has made the habitat better for A to stay for B to stay in. I hope that makes sense somehow. Maybe you should rewind the video again, probably to help you understand better. That's why I chose computation, like that helps succession in a way. Now it says floating microscopic heterotrophs that are mostly grouped as floating microscopic heterotrophs. That means they are on water. So, and those organisms on water are actually the ones we call planktons. So phytoplanktons are photosynthetic, while zooplankton are animals, like they feed on phytoplankton. And heterotrophs means organisms that feed on other organisms. So the answer is B, which is zooplankton. All right, they're actually very small on the surface of water there. Vaccination is carried out in order to do what? Well, the question we need to ask ourselves is, what is vaccination and what's the aim? Vaccination is like you are introducing an inactive, active or dead microbe in someone's body. And why will you do something like that? When you do that, it will stimulate the person's white blood cell to produce antibodies against that very pathogen, in case the real one comes much later. Now what I'm saying is, imagine that you are given measles vaccine. Just for example, let's say measles vaccine. That means you are being given dead or inactive measles virus. All right. So when that goes into your bloodstream, because it is dead, it will not make you sick. But because there's a presence of it, it will stimulate your white blood cell, particular type called lymphocytes, to produce antibodies. These antibodies they have produced is actually specifically for what? For measles. All right. Now, your body has produced some antibodies for measles. So what happens is, later in future, when the real measles virus comes into your body, what happens is, within a very short space of time, because your body has seen what measles looks like before from the vaccine it has been given to the body before, then what happens is that within a short time, your body will produce a lot of measles antibodies. What will they do? To kill and destroy this measles virus. Now, however, you should remember that some of the measles virus antibodies has been created before. But when the real measles comes in, before the measles will be able to reproduce so much more in our body, the antibodies for measles specifically will be produced faster than the measles virus, and that will prevent it from becoming infectious. You're just going to have a little fever, which the person might not even know, and that's all. So it means that the vaccination is to what? To stimulate the production of antibodies. So the answer is D. All right. It says to increase activity of the white blood cells. Well, that doesn't really, it's not direct enough. But the aim is to stimulate the production of antibodies against that particular vaccine, that particular disease. So if you want to receive, it's called chickenpox vaccine, rubella vaccine, measles vaccine, and each of them has a name. All right. Now, the probability of a baby being a boy or a girl depends on the contribution of the father's sex cells. What are a man's sex cell? X and Y. What are the mother's sex cell? It's X and X. So why is it that it is the father sex cell that determines? Because if he donates his X and X, you're going to have 2X here. So if it was the way he donated, you're going to have what? XY. So it is a man that determines that, because he has X and Y, is heterozygous, but the female always has the XX, that way is homozygous. So the mother doesn't decide that. All right. Now, in a population of living things, the parameter size of size, height, weight, and colors are examples of continuous variation. What do I mean? When you have any variation means differences. When you have, let's say, size, let's say somebody is using shoe size 40, somebody is using shoe size 18, somebody is using shoe size 11, somebody is using shoe size 9. Now, the biggest here is 40. The smallest here is what? 10. And it's 9. Now, because you have a middle value or a middle variation, that's why we say that height is continuous. Any variation whereby you have intermediates between two extremes, it is called continuous. For example, we probably tell me, how can we color does have intermediates? It is. In a family, you can have the darkest person and the fairest person. So the darkest is at this end, the fairest at this end. In between, you have some people that are probably not too dark skin, not too light skin, so to say. So because of some people are probably dark, some is chocolate, some is fair. So those are variations. Why this continuous variation, this option C, means that it's either you have it or you don't have it. I used to study that way. In my school days, I would say that I studied, even as a student then, that the continuous variation simply means whether you have that thing or you don't have it. Is that it's there or not? For example, your ability to roll tongue. Is that you can roll your tongue or you cannot roll it? It's nothing like, okay, I can roll it halfway. It's that you can roll it or not. Your blood group is an example of this variation. Why? Because it's that you have blood group A or B or O or AB. You can't say I'm A and O together. It doesn't work that way. Right? And we have other examples of that. Now, the process of water loss and intake indicated by the arrow, label 1 and 2 respectively, is what? Okay, that's happening in the body of this plant, of this animal. That's going to be, okay, 6 respectively. So 1 is, I'm going to do for 1 first. So 1 should be evaporation and 2 should be osmosis. All right, so the answer should be A because it says respectively. So 1 should be, which is this one here, is evaporation, while 2, which is this one here, is going in, is osmosis. So the answer is A. All right. The noticeable adaptation of animals to its aquatic habitat is the process of, is the possession, please. Possession of what? What would make an animal adapted to aquatic habitat? Webbed digits, 4 limbs, webbed mouth, large eyes. No, it's webbed digit. Why? To be able to swim like this. It's going to have webbed digit to be able to swim. You probably see that this one, there's space in between the digits, but this one has a little space with some, so you can walk and also swim. But this one is majorly for swimming, like the legs of the feet of ducks and some other aquatic birds or animals, as it were. Now, paternity dispute, which means the dispute to know who is the true father of a child, can mostly accurately be resolved through the use of, well, it's going to be DNA analysis. Why can't we use blood group? Because there are a lot of people that have the same blood group, a lot. They are not even related. But DNA analysis is going to be yours. If the child is the child father's, if it is the man's own or not, it can easily be known. But blood group is not totally reliable. Now here, use the table below to answer the question. Let me say the table above. Now, relative humidity will be expected in, okay. Now, we need to remember what's relative humidity, amount of moisture, which means amount of wetness in the air, in the atmosphere. Now, we should expect to have that in an area where you have high rainfall and low temperature. Or let me say, okay, we should expect that in two places. Good. Here in 2, we have temperature is quite not too low, but the rainfall is quite much. Then also here, temperature is not too low, but we have high rainfall. So it's going to be 2 and 3. That is option B, because amount of moisture in the atmosphere. All right. So moving on. Then it says here, which of the zone is likely to be a desert? Well, we are looking for an area that has lowest rainfall and highest temperature. And looking at that quickly, this is 45 degrees Celsius. Rainfall per year is 300. 300. I'm trying to erase that. Here it says like 300 millimeter in a year. That is very small. So that looks like a desert really. All right. Now, when bacteria swim from cold to warm regions, this is known as what? Movement of animals to start with is called taxism or taxis. So, which means what we are interested in will be all the taxis, which all of them are. Now, warm or cold is referred to as temperature, really. So, when something is moving towards a thing, it's called positive. When it's moving away from it, it's called negative. But to make it easier here, this is called, the answer is C, positive thermotaxis. Why is it positive? It's moving towards warm region. It's moving towards the warm region. And why is it called thermo? Because it's temperature. Why is it called taxis? Because the animal is moving. Actually, it is an animal. Taxism is an animal. Then moving from one point to the other in response to the environment, in response to its particular stimuli. In this case, temperature. The only castes, or some call it castes, I'm not sure of the pronunciation, please, in the termite colony whose member can feed themselves are, to start with, what are the castes, the members we have there? We have the so to say the king, the reproductive, which is the female, just one, which is the queen there. Then we have the soldier, which is sterile, cannot reproduce. Worker cannot reproduce. These winged reproductive are only produced during when the termitarium is filled up and they need to measure. I've seen that in one of my other videos whereby the termitarium is so filled up and the food is not enough. So these ones will develop wings and fly out to go and start another colony, so to say. Now hear this king and this queen are fertile. They are the ones that can produce, while these other two are sterile. They can't reproduce. Now, what's the function of the worker? Of the soldier is to defend the territory, to defend their termitarium. All right. While the worker is to provide food and to feed others and to feed themselves. So the answer to this question is A. All right. Now, which of the following is the best explanation for a child who is phenotypically, which means by appearance, short and born of two tall parents? Well, it's simple. It means that both parents have genes for shortness, even though it is both of them have genes for shortness. Why is it not one? The reason is because they are both tall. That means they have recessive trait. They both have dominant traits for tallness. And for you to have dominant traits for tallness, and you now give birth to a child that is short, that means that you have, let's say this is tall, this is short. So that means the mom is going to look like this also. So they both have that, because you know that anytime in genetics for a trait that is recessive to be dominant, it must be in homozygous form. It must be collected from two parents, which is why this is going to look like this. As I said, both parents possess the gene or for shortness, so they're going to give the child that allele, or let me say that gene of shortness, even though it is recessive. Now, which of the following vertebrates has the most simple structured heart? Oh, okay. Well, okay. Reptiles, no. Fishes, yes. Mammals, no. Amphibians, no. So now, that has the simplest. It's going to be fishes. It already has 2 chambers. Amphibians has 3. Reptiles have 4, which is not fully formed, while birds and mammals have 4, which is fully formed. Now, let me show you what I meant by that. Now, for Pisces, which is fishes, so the answer to this question is fishes, which is B, which is here. It's just 1 ventricle, 1 auricle. Let me zoom that in for you to see. Come in just a minute, please. Now, so just 1 ventricle and 1 auricle. For amphibians, they have 2 auricles and 1 ventricle. For reptiles, they have 2 auricles. They have 2 ventricles, which are not fully formed. You can see it here. You can see that the septum here is not fully formed. It's just halfway there. It stops here. It's not fully formed. Now, you saw it says except the crocodiles. Why? The crocodile has 4 fully, completely formed parts. Like what? Like birds and mammals. You can see the septum is fully formed. Actually, we have 2 auricles, or we say atria, all right, and 2 ventricles fully formed and fully partitioned from one another like that. Hope that is making sense. So you might pause the video to see that some more. Now, the type of protective adaptation exhibited by the animal here is disruptive coloration, flash coloration, counter shading coloration. One is counter shading. Also, aside fishes, animals like this also have, when you look at them from above in their holes, it's harder for you to see because this upper part is quite darker than the undersurface. Undersurface is light. So upper surface is darker, so that when you look at them from above like that, it blends with the dark hole in which they live in. Right? So they use counter shading for them to go unnoticed or remain unnoticed in their holes and be able to escape from predators and all of that. Then lastly, it says here, the structure label 1 is what? Well, that is the whiskers. What is it used for? It is for touch. It helps them. It helps them to be able to detect when they're moving. It helps them to know that there's an obstruction ahead of them and all of that. So it is tactile. Tactile refers to touch sensation and all of that. Hope this has been helpful. So I'm going to see you in the next